What's up everyone? Alex here. Yoko Taro has been a busy man lately. He has released 3 games over the past 2 years, with a 4th one coming out later this month. That 4th game is the confusingly titled, let me look at my notes, Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars, or as I'd like to call it, Voice of Cards. When we saw this introduced recently, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh no, another collectible card game. So imagine my surprise that when I actually tried the demo that it was anything but that. And so in this video, I want to share with you my experience with the demo, which is available on Switch, PS4, and PC by the way, in the hopes that maybe you can check it out yourself. And of course, if you don't have time to do so, I'll walk you through my experience with the game and why you should probably pay attention to this one. To give you kind of a scope of what I feel Voice of Cards really is, it's a complete deconstruction of what JRPGs are all about. And the reason why I say this is because every single card in the game is used to represent the game world that you're going to be playing in. If you can imagine one card as basically a sprite tile in an 8-bit RPG, that's pretty much what this is doing. But then, of course, the next question is going to be, well, aren't battles going to be much like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering or Pokemon Trade? You know what I mean. I'm glad to say that that's not actually the case here. In fact, it is still a turn-based RPG through and through, complete with random battles. So the combination of random battles plus card/tile-based level design, it does kind of evoke this interesting deconstructed 8-bit style JRPG through and through. But there are other elements of the game that kind of bring it to a modern light. For one, MP is not really a thing in this game. In fact, their MP-like element actually borrows a mechanic from games like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering, which are these little gems that you get every time a character takes a turn. And you can bank these gems in order to use more powerful attacks later on. So this adds this level of shared resource across the entire party that is very unique to Voice of Cards. Now, approaching this as an old-school JRPG, it also then makes sense to approach enemies' weaknesses in the same vein. For example, plant-like enemies are probably weak to fire, and undead creatures such as skeletons and similar monstrosities are probably weak to light. As far as the random encounter rate goes, I do feel that it's pretty good. It's not so overbearing like Final Fantasy IX, and I've actually wanted to get into fights because of how great the presentation is. When you get into a random battle, an entire board is set on top of the map, and you get to play the battles on this board. Once again, traditional JRPG style turn-based combat. With regards to the artwork, I know it's pretty simplistic because it is presented as a card game, but I absolutely love its aesthetics, and it's so refreshing to kind of play a JRPG in this style. I want to restate that there are no collectible card elements in this demo, and I'm almost certain that the game won't have any of that as well. It is a JRPG through and through. You buy items from the apothecary or the item shop, you buy new weapons and armor from the blacksmith, and you get to rest at the inns. Every single piece of dialogue is voiced by a narrator, and the narrator acts as sort of like a dungeon master, if you will. But having this singular narrator deliver you from one story aspect of the game to another is actually very welcome, because it really grounds the experience in the same way that a storyteller is telling you what's happening.
The man's eyes widen. He leans close to Winifred and whispers something in her ear. Welcome to Nixton.
What's also really cool about this is that there's a consistency with how the game is presented throughout. As far as the character goes, you're represented by a marker on screen, which of course represents the entire party. Again, very similar to 8-bit JRPGs. But there are modern conveniences, such as being able to warp to another location that you've already uncovered. One thing that I also really like about the game is the feeling of exploration is actually heightened because not everything is actually revealed. When you go out into a dungeon or the world map, all the unexplored territory is actually represented with the cards face down. And the more you move on the world map, the more you uncover the rest of the world. In fact, what I really find fun about Voice of Cards is the fact that you don't know what you're getting into at every turn. There was one particular part of the game where I encountered a goblin that was actually poisoned, and I had the choice to either help him by giving him an antidote or leave him be. Eventually, later on, when I was going back and forth between two different points of the map, I encountered the same goblin, and because I helped him out, he actually gave me a life restoration potion. There's also treasure chests scattered about that reward you with a ton of different items, even gold, to use. There's also different ways to solve a problem. For instance, there is this boat that is cursed, and you can either go to the apothecary to buy a dispeller potion, or you can win the ability to dispel the curse by playing against somebody via a card game. Now, I've never tried the card game because, for one thing, I wanted to see how pure of a JRPG this is, and I'm actually really curious to try that out the next time I play this demo. The demo does feature one dungeon, and as you can expect from something that harkens back to the old 8-bit JRPG style of dungeoning, there are doors that are locked with keys, and you have to get the keys to unlock the doors, and there's also a lot of explorable areas. Overall, I absolutely loved what I played of Voice of Cards. I think the demo is really spot on. Its presentation is really sleek and gorgeous. Despite having this minimalistic presentation, everything works really well. The random encounters that you get, not just for enemies, but also the events that unfold, are all quite welcome, and it reintroduces this sense of randomness in a very fresh way that other JRPGs would often relegate as a tick in a side quest list. Loving the old school combat, loving the old school dungeon exploration, and of course the feeling of exploration across the world and its cavernous monster lairs. Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars comes out on October 28, 2021 on PS4, Nintendo Switch, and PC. The demo that I talked about right now features content that is not part of the main game, and you can play it without worrying about spoiling yourself. So go check it out when you get a chance. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.